According to the American Psychological Association, 40 to 50% of divorces or of marriages end in divorce. Like many American families, my parents ultimately got divorced. I truly do not blame either of my parents, and I believe that they did the best they could to raise myself and my younger siblings, and in many ways they succeeded. I'm fortunate enough to be in medical school. My younger brother Harry is an accomplished athlete and student, and my younger sister Megan is a straight-A student at her undergraduate institution. Research by Dr. Lee and Dr. McClanahan from NYU and Princeton, respectively, have shown that there is a direct correlation between parental divorce and an increased risk of academic problems, disruptive behavior, substance use, and depression. Now, I want to share a story from my life about me and my younger brother, Harry. Now, me and my brother, as siblings, share the same genetics, and growing up, we're exposed to the same environment. But yet we developed two very different coping strategies. I, on the one hand, nearly failed the 8th grade, disrespected authority figures, mostly my high school hockey coach, and in the final year of my high school and into college, struggled with substance use and depression. My brother, on the other hand, was resilient. He was able to take the same negative life experiences that I had and was able to set goals for himself and was disciplined enough to achieve those goals. Ultimately, my brother inspired me to become more resilient. And I believe that I'm standing here today as living proof that resiliency can be learned. And I hope to share the lessons that I've learned in the hopes of convincing other people to try to become more resilient themselves. So now I'm going to share a story about my brother Harry. There was a time when he was training for track and field and swimming at the same time, which means he was running about 5 miles a day and swimming about 5 miles a day, 6 days a week. He was experiencing a lot of pain from that intensive workout regimen, but thought that if he pushed through the pain, eventually it would lead to results. However, in that April, when he was competing in the triple jump, he fractured his ischium in his pelvis in 3 different places and tore his hamstring. The doctors actually told him that if one of the cracks in his ischium was just 1/16 of an inch wider, he would have required a full body cast for a year. However, he was just sent home with crutches and was told to avoid putting weight on that leg. Now, most people would see an injury like that as an excuse to stop training, but not my brother Harry. He perfectly exemplified 3 key strategies for resilience developed by Dr. Lucy Home. He accepted the bad situation. He didn't take it personally or say, "Why me?" Number 2, he focused on what he could do in the situation. He actually still went to practice, even after breaking his ischium. Even though he couldn't kick and he couldn't do flip turns, he focused on what he could do at practice. He focused on doing physical therapy to try to recover. And in August of that very same year, he qualified for zones, which is an age group championship meet that is extremely hard to qualify for. Now, I mean, just qualifying for that meet would be pretty impressive. But at that meet, he actually swam his very best mile time. And that was just 4 months after breaking his pelvis. So that essentially proves that if you accept the bad, focus on what you can do, and ask yourself, is what I'm doing helping or hurting me? Oh, that was the third thing. Ask, in everything you do, ask, is this helping me or is this hurting me? You can achieve your goals even in the face of adversity. So you would think, maybe, that having a brother who was so resilient, some of that would have rubbed off on me. But unfortunately, I didn't really choose to learn to be resilient until after I had sort of hit a rock bottom and experienced the worst failure of my life. So what started out as an incredible gap year opportunity to join the National Health Corps, move to Florida, and serve as a wellness coordinator at a rural healthcare clinic ultimately resulted in me becoming homeless and having to leave the program to move back home to Pittsburgh during a pandemic. Now, I was going through a lot of stress at that time. There was about a week period where I didn't really know where I was going to sleep at night. And I was just living out of my car and basically crashing from like couch to couch at just friends that I had in the area. And it was in those moments that I realized I needed to make a change. I couldn't keep doing the same things I was doing. But I didn't really know what to do. The one thought that I had was that I had to choose to do good. I didn't really know what good was at that time. But thankfully, when I moved back home, I was with someone who had been living by the philosophy of trying their best to do good their whole life. And that was my brother. So I really didn't know what to do. I was pretty lost and displaced. So what I did was I essentially just copied my brother's daily routine. I got up at the same time as him. We ate meals at the same time together. And I started doing the same exercise that he was doing every day for about 4 months. And at first it was really difficult because it was a very different way of living than I was used to. But ultimately, I was able to sort of learn, Okay. Oh yeah, all right, sorry. So I was going to tell just a quick anecdote about how it was difficult to change. I remember one day I asked my brother, "How the heck do you get up in the morning as soon as your alarm clock goes off?" Because that was a habit he had. As soon as his alarm went off, bolted out of bed, made his bed, started his day. I was always, on the other hand, someone who pressed snooze probably 3 or 4 times, just like out of habit. And I remember when I asked him the question, I'm not going to forget his response because he was genuinely puzzled by the question. And he said, I don't think about it. I just do it. As if it wasn't something that he had ever even considered was like a difficult thing to do. And I think he said that because it wasn't a question for him in the morning if he was going to get up and start his day. He just knew he was going to do it. I think when a lot of us set out to do something, we have that doubt. We have that little voice in the back of our head that says, well, you're not really going to do it. You're going to try to do it. But then when you get there, you might not actually do it. At least that's how I felt when I would try to get up early in the morning. But that wasn't the case for him. Because he knew that if he got out of bed and started his day, he'd be more productive and he would get more done. So in the 4 months I spent at home, I learned cognitive and behavioral skills that now today I realize are in line with the resilient skills that were developed by the University of Pennsylvania in their resilience program. I was able to slowly change my thinking style to avoid negative loops and to examine alternate possibilities. I used to think about worst case scenarios in my mind. and I felt powerless to prevent the worst case scenarios from happening. My brother Harry showed me how to take a small step in the right direction. You don't have to fix all your problems in one day, but if you can take one small step in the right direction, that's better than doing nothing or making it worse. I also learned how to problem solve and how to adapt. I learned how to prioritize and make sure that the most important things got done, even if things didn't go according to plan. And it was very tough at first, but I was motivated to learn these things because I knew that I had to try to choose to do good. And eventually, that negative feedback loop was actually replaced by a positive feedback loop, where the act of choosing to do good actually made me feel good, and that motivated me to keep doing good things. So here's how I used the lessons that I learned from my brother Harry in my personal life. When I moved out from home after spending 4 months quarantining because of COVID, it was to start school here at GCSOM. And I was determined to continue living the same sort of life that I learned while I was living at home with my brother. I made a schedule. I carved out enough time to exercise, sleep, and eat, and study every day. And this time I knew I was going to stick to it. I didn't have a doubt in my mind. I knew I was going to do it. I also made a goal to compete in a triathlon in my first semester of school. So I registered for a triathlon, but I didn't realize that the weekend that I picked was the busiest week of the busiest block in school. You guys know it as like week 11, block 2. It was terrible. Nobody else gets that. But so I had fear. I had really paralyzing fear that if I went and did this, when I got back, I would be so far behind that I wouldn't catch up and that I would probably fail the block. But then I also feared not doing the triathlon because I had worked so hard every day to try to do it. So I used the skills of resiliency that I learned from my brother. I made a plan, I stuck to the plan, and I ended up doing the best that I've ever done in triathlon, and came back to school and passed the weekly quiz and the block. And when I achieved that goal, it inspired me to dream bigger, to think about what else I could accomplish. So my current goal is to one day complete an Ironman triathlon and to graduate medical school. And I have faith that I will do what is in my power to achieve that goal. My brother Harry exemplifies resilience. Even when he broke his pelvis, he did what he could to achieve his goals. After I experienced homelessness in Florida, I became determined to make a change in my life, and my brother showed me how to change through his actions. He was the one who convinced me that I am capable of living a better life. Harry taught me to be resilient, and even though he exemplified resilience for most of his life, I didn't recognize those features in him until after I had become motivated to make a change. And for me, that motivation, in the simplest terms, was just an inner drive to choose to do good. I hope to motivate others who are contemplating change to seek out mentors. Because when I knew that I wanted to change, I didn't know how to change. I had to learn that from my brother, Harry.